Are you like me? Did you finish God of War Ragnarok and lament the hollow finale our Ashen brother received? Were you also somewhat disappointed in the magnificent house of cards the game sets up and then kind of just sweeps into a drawer like, that was fun. Anyway, everything's fine now. Leaving Kratos wandering the realms like your dad going house to house selling Avon? Many months ago now, I made a video about God of War Ragnarok. My specific intention seemed to be to make it as many minutes long as views it would receive. Yep, seemed like I got pretty close. But my main takeaway from Ragnarok, apart from Sony Santa Monica completely removing a really satisfying bare-handed combat system for seemingly no reason. And no, I ain't dropping it. I ain't never dropping it. I'm still going to be talking about it when I'm 127 years old and hooked up to a cyberpunk iron lung. I ain't never going to shut up about it. It's the emptiness the end of Ragnarok left me with. That after all the truly slaptastic comedy antics of Kratos, Mimir, and those two teenagers I do not care about, our Ashen friend felt robbed of the rest he truly deserves. During the ending of Ragnarok, we are teased with the phrase,
"There is much to do."
Only to be left, as I said back then, exhausting dialogue with your allies until you wander quietly through the snow in awkward silence, like Freya just farted and everyone's too uncomfortable to mention it.
Shame on you.
Well, it seemed when I put those thoughts into the YouTube verse, the universe answered back and said, Aye, alright. Thus in December of 2023, God of War Valhalla was announced and subsequently released absolutely gosh darn for free just a couple of days later, and you can bet your bottom dollar my reaction was, oh. Hello. God of War Valhalla is a roguelike epilogue to Ragnarok, where Kratos has... spoilers, by the way. Where Kratos has been invited to Valhalla by an unknown host, and alongside Mimir we endure an endless gauntlet of combat that definitely only exists because someone made a game called Hades a few years ago, and it was so good everyone's head exploded. Valhalla's announcement was exciting, don't get me wrong, but not all that enlightening on what we were to expect. As it turns out, about what I hoped for. A conclusion for our boy. Valhalla serves as a reflection of someone's self in this here video game, and so not only are we constantly chopping and bopping the many enemies we've faced throughout the realms, and some new ones, we are also discovering lore and story galore, peeling back the many layers of the Kratos onion and asking, yes Kratos, that does sound all very traumatic, but I must ask, what about all those sex minigames you had? They must have been kind of wild, eh? Just bashing that circle button all day. The return of Heliod, familiar Greek monstrosities, a wieldable blade of Olympus, and finally some screen time from the original Norse God of War Tyr, who, quite rightfully, turns out to be one of the best boss battles in the entire Norse saga. It is exactly what I wanted in new God of War content. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's exactly what I asked for in my last video. Post Ragnarok, you can find the real Tyr trapped in a remnant of Asgard, and while you, the player, probably have lots of questions upon discovering perhaps the most important character in the Norse saga, the game don't care what you want, brother.
I would be left alone, please.
Of course.
Post his discovery, Tyr floats around the realms, almost taunting players with how little he has to say. And now, as the final milestone for Kratos, all the while exploring the ghost of Sparta's memories and discovering more about the relationship between Mimir and Sigrun is not exactly the type of victory lap I was expecting, but a welcome one, indeed.
I'll give you this, brother. Your technique has improved immeasurably.
But there is a catch. It's a roguelike. Now, I know lots of people love roguelikes, but I just can't do it anymore. I can't deal with the, you died on that boss that took you 20 minutes to get to, and that's genuinely the only thing you're having trouble with? Well, have fun doing all those 20 minutes again. It's the headmaster leaning over your shoulder, making you redo every exam question for getting the last one wrong. And Hades figured out a few years ago that if you put pictures of daddy bisexual Zeus next to the same level geometry you've seen more times than you've seen your mother's face, then people will keep playing. But Zeus? I ain't interested. And now that I've finished Valhalla and had a joyous old time overall, I maintain the experience that took me about 20 hours to beat I would have much rather it was over in about 10. Which would have been fine if I could change the difficulty. But I can't. Daddy Zeus said I'm not allowed. And I regret writing that sentence. One of the many things I discussed in my original video about Ragnarok is how imperfect the combat system is. It's fun, yes, but it takes cues from the purposeful combat design of Souls games and the free choice that comes with the build your own Kratos action RPG and mashes them together into an awkward combat trifle that doesn't fulfill either of those inspirations. In my mind, it's a trifle, just go with it. Interestingly, as much fun that can be obtained from Valhalla, it is also the perfect showcase for how imperfect Ragnarok's gameplay is. Whether that be combat design, traversal, or the needless pop-ups that litter every single box opening and upgrade purchase. It took me 20 hours to beat Valhalla, and I'd love to know how much of my time was spent staring at explanations of things I'd seen hundreds of times. Like everybody thought Kratos was just a bit slow and wanted to congratulate him on doing the shopping all by himself.
I don't think you can be trusted to keep that safe at all.
Whoa, be nice, come on. He's trying his best. Kratos, ignore him. Your favourite TV show's about to come on anyway, let's have a look. See, we're all having a good time. In God of War Ragnarok and Valhalla, when you're facing one character, usually a very well designed boss, the game is immense amounts of fun. The different incarnations of Tyr you face in this free DLC are simply the most rewarding time I've had playing any of these games. Until he spawns additional enemies and suddenly I'm getting multiple blades up the bum.
I just give me the retry button, man. I'm tired of this pish.
But the locked over-the-shoulder camera means, just like the base game, you get shredded to pieces by things you cannot see. The vast majority of my deaths came from not being able to hit things around or beside me, and thus my boy Kratos falls to the floor like someone's threw peanut dust in his face, and he is sadly without his EpiPen. And then there's the RPG aspect of the combat. Now, a good RPG does two things. It does the robot monkey symbols clapping together fun time when you see numbers go up, and also lets the player pick a role and play it. Ideally, my Kratos should be different from your Kratos, but you can't really do that. You can, but only a bit. In the most tepid way possible, my Kratos can have quicker cooldowns than yours. And if you invest a lot, then maybe my Kratos will be good at stunning people. The way, for example, I am. I was going to wink there, but then I changed my mind and it turned into a kind of psychotic like eye twitch. You know? The way I'm so charming. But there is a very distinct lack of the flashy, expressive variety that makes great RPGs great RPGs. The wide breadth of choice but lack of true utility of God of War's combat is put on full display here. A sea of options but no clear correct choice. So this means that when things are too difficult, you're not sure if you're using the wrong abilities on the wrong enemies, or you're simply too weak. And when things are too easy, all the sense of accomplishment evaporates because no matter what button you seem to hit, it gets the job done in the end. When the difficulty rolls into the valley of perfect balance and all concern for gameplay optimization or numbers disappear, that fleeting dragon is what kept me engaged for so many hours. Ragnarok, and Valhalla as well, tries to address some of this by having you use specific weapons to stop enemies in certain instances, but it's not Doom Eternal levels of combat design. Criticisms intact, I must admit, going back to the main game makes me appreciate Valhalla's additional abilities, like Deep Freeze, which automatically frost charges your axe after a delayed R1 attack. Very nice, it made me feel cool, and also gave me a reason to use an ability I wouldn't normally use. But more fundamentally, the noticeable improvement removing so much number juggling does to the game where, ideally, you just want to chop undead wood people in half with a magical axe. Ragnarok interweaves so many different stats and abilities amongst its dozens of equipment pieces that it gets A, ridiculously tiresome as a player, but B, locks the player out of the best aspects of the combat. If you take a fun build that you discovered in Valhalla and try to apply it to the main game, you might find, just as I did, that it will not work. Ragnarok often attaches stat points to specific abilities, whether you like those stats or not, which means you're often choosing abilities that might not be viable in the playstyle of your choice. In my case, a runic build where the attachments that gave me my runic abilities did not give me enough runic points to be useful. In Valhalla, the simple separation of stat numbers, armour and abilities produces a much sleeker God of War RPG system, one which is less complicated, cumbersome and, believe it or not, more fun to play.
We finally bloody made it.
If you're a story boy like me and enjoy the combat but ultimately just want to find out what Tier's been watching on Prime Video lately, then holy hell, just put it on easy. Because Sony Santa Monica, you're not pulling the wool over my eyes on this one. I could be writing something, learning an instrument, getting that witch doctor to finally do something about those ghost people who live in my loft, but no! I have to run through the first room of Valhalla several thousands of times until my fingers are fast enough to completely gamerify the original Norse God of War. But it was kinda cool. The most interesting takeaway about Valhalla is that it appeals to someone like me, who wants a fulfilling conclusion for Kratos after the hollowness that was Ragnarok. But that person isn't necessarily the same person who enjoys roguelikes. In the case of me, it definitely isn't.
What am I doing in here?
And running the same gauntlet many times wasn't necessarily my idea of fun. At points it feels one step away from an epilogue hidden behind a kart racing game, which I will admit does sound like a game I would very much like to play. But my one true wish leading into this was that Kratos gain the rest he so rightfully deserved. Battle after battle, both of mind and metal, the man has earned his rest, and the old boy just needs a sit down. That's all I wanted, just for him to have a sit down. In my final battle with a truly impressive God of War in Tyr, what does Kratos get? After a beautiful monologue about who and what he is and can be?
I believe I would like to sit here for a while.
It took a while to get there, but somehow a roguelike epilogue turned out to be the perfectly dressed bandage to heal the wounds left from Ragnarok's conclusion. And to that, Sony Santa Monica, I thank you. But next time, can you just let me change the difficulty? Please? Oh, and also, I would have paid like £7 for this. Just saying.
Sometimes I think you've come too far, brother.
And that is my thoughts on God of War Ragnarok Valhalla EX Extra Part 1.5 Remix, or whatever the full Japanese title is. I hope you have enjoyed. What did you think of Valhalla? Or are you some sort of strange person who hasn't even played Ragnarok and just watched some balding 28-year-old white man describe what he liked about it? I don't know, maybe. I found out there's a large amount of Americans who seem to just enjoy my voice. So maybe it's more of a sexual curiosity than it is anything informative about video games. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned because I've got a couple of reviews in the presser right now. Hope you all had a great Christmas, even though I'm filming this in the middle of February. Who fucking cares? And a holly jolly new year. Remember, hope you didn't piss off Santa, because he's coming for you this December. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.